welcome to the God is a Geek podcast, episode 549. Wow, the man can't count. And that's the start of the podcast. I'm your host, Adam Cook, and I'm joined by Chris Hyde and Lyle Carr. Hello, how are you both? Are you good?
All introduced together, just like we love, right?
I know. Do you know what? There's getting a longer pause between my name and the "and." I just wait now. I'd rather there be an uncomfortable pause before I go, "Oh yeah," than just come in whilst he's still saying your name. So
see, the thing is I'm not that smart, because what happened there is I was thinking, I've got to keep extending this pause every week. But by doing so, I forgot how to say numbers and got the wrong number of the podcast episode.
Yeah.
So, like, I could think a little bit ahead, but not. Yeah. Then I forget. Like, it's basically information goes in and it stays there until the next bit of information comes in, and then it's gone. The bit before's gone. So
yeah, you can only store a certain amount of facts.
Yeah. It's years from doing.
I like the fact that you prioritised taking the piss out of me over giving the correct information to the listeners.
Hey,
about
no,
what
look,
that's important.
If I was taking the mick, I would have said Lyle's name first, because you mentioned previously how much that annoys you, and I didn't do that.
So. I wouldn't have let that go.
But the thing about numbers is that, maths in general, is that I struggle with them a bit, which is why when a game comes along called Eiyuden Hero... Oh, shit, no, it's not. It's called Eiyuden Chronicle, 100 Heroes. 100, the numbers...
I'm well aware that 100 is a number. Yeah, carry on.
Yeah, that degree coming in clutch today.
yeah, smashing it.
We played it. Lyle and I played it for preview. I've finished it. Chris, you're a good way into it. It's time to talk about a lovely JRPG, right?
Yeah, right.
Okay,
yeah.
No, sorry. Chris looks really... You can't see this on the audio version, obviously. He looks pensive and deep in thought, like he's worried. No.
I'm not worried. I kind of feel like I need to just wait and then reply.
Okay.
I don't know why it's become the year of RPGs for me, but I have finished another one.
Fucking hell, it has.
It really has. I'd be honest with you, right? I do think my gaming habits are changing a little bit. So I played, I would say 95% of this game on Steam Deck, and I think I played a bit of it on PC just to capture bits and bobs and screenshots and stuff, but mostly, 95%, if not more, on Steam Deck. And it's one of those games, and I did feel this a little bit with Persona 3 Reload, is that I can't imagine having the time in front of a television, if that makes sense. Whereas when it's just something you can pick up, do a bit of, literally suspend it, put it down, pick it up, and you can do it in the middle of a battle, like on Switch. I really love this game. And it was really interesting because it's the spiritual successor, from what I understand, to Suikoden 2, right? And Mick reviewed it, and he asked me sort of midway through, with both of us playing through this game, and he goes, "Did you play them?" I can't remember, if I'm honest.
Yeah, there were PS1 games.
I definitely didn't.
But that means there's a likelihood I did, but I just can't remember. Like... this isn't like a joke about getting old or whatever. I really can. The name, do you know when you've heard something so many times that you sort of almost ingest it and you think, did I?
Yeah. I
think I did. I really can't remember. Regardless, it really is that. It really is that from what I understand. Like it's got everything. I don't know how much of it's spoilery, so I want to be quite careful because it's only just out. But it's got everything that a fan of that game would want, and I mean everything that a fan of that game would want. Stuff, for example, Lyle, that you didn't see in the preview, is in this game, if that makes sense. Now, I don't know how big of a fan of Suikoden you are. I think quite a lot.
Honestly, not really.
Okay.
I had played. I don't know if I finished either of 1 or 2, but I definitely played them both because you could get them on either PSP or Vita. It was quite easy to get them on. So having them handheld was kind of one of those game changers for me because, like I remember doing that with, on that old PlayStation handheld, having, your all your classic PS1 RPGs, your Final Fantasy 7, 9. We won't mention the other. And but it was a series where, I remember playing a bit of it. I remember enjoying it. I think I own somewhere around the house, like all 6 technically games. So they're all somewhere, but it was a series I always admired. I always liked the idea of it being like, in your normal RPG, you can have like maybe 3 or 4 party members and there'll be like 8. So you might not use half of them. Whereas in this, it's like, in this and what inspired this, you very much have a lot of choice.
Yeah,
from what I gather.
Yeah, no, you do, and like I don't know, it's a quite a strange game in that so much of it hits that nostalgia button for me, like the turn-based combat, the art style, the overworld style, the walk. You know, it's to me, it's like, you know, the Final Fantasy VII overworld map. You know, walking between locations, that kind of thing. It looks lovely and the soundtrack's great. It's a very strange game though, because I think I've been thinking about this a lot because we've had it a decent amount of time, and before that we had a preview build of it.
Yeah, and
I've been thinking about it quite a lot because it's all I've been doing is living as Noah in this game, and others, and it. I don't want to put people off by saying this, right? But I thought it's a really modern comparison. This is to RPGs, I think, what Dragon's Dogma 2 is to action RPGs. And I say that cautiously, but I say it because while there's an awful lot of Eiyuden Chronicle 100 Heroes that I'm familiar with immediately because I've played this kind of game my whole life, if you hadn't, there's an awful lot about this game that they don't explain. And I feel like they take less glee in it. Like, I feel like in Dragon's Dogma 2 there is a bit of kind of almost like a glee to like how much we're not telling you. I don't think it's quite that degree of sort of obfuscation, if you will. But there's a lot it doesn't tell you. So, like, there's a game within a game, and it's called Begoma, which I'm not sure if that's how you pronounce it. Now, this game is basically... Yeah, I think you'll have even seen it mentioned in the preview build. I'm pretty sure they mentioned, "Oh, you don't even have Begoma yet," someone says.
Okay, probably.
This goes on for hours. Like, you just randomly meet NPCs, like, and they go, oh, no, you're not ready for me yet. And you're like, I don't know what you're talking about. I don't know what you're... Now, Begoma, if you don't know, and you probably don't, is Beyblades. Now, I don't know if you remember Beyblades, but it was a hit for quite a while, sort of when my kids were younger.
They're weirdly still a thing, Beyblades. Really? I didn't realise that. Really? Yeah. But like, just on YouTube, I saw that Beyblades were being bought, and like that people do it like competitively and shit. And I was like, I didn't know this was a whole thing. They're little spinning tops, but sure.
Well, that's what Begoma is. That's what Begoma is. It's Beyblades. It's not like it's a bit like Beyblades. It's Beyblades. There's like they have like a wooden thing that you release your Begoma into. And the only way you get access to this game is just by going back to a town that you've been to before, where there just happens to be a chap there that wasn't there before who is angry about his loss at Begoma, thus introduced a quest line and leads you to getting access to Begoma. And a lot of this game, a lot of it is that. A lot of it is the opposite of following your nose, if you know what I mean. It's just like, go back somewhere and you'll find something. That's what I would say, is keep going back.
Yeah, it's a very right place, right time type of game discovery, isn't it? A lot of it. Which, in some ways, is, like you said, like, is how, like, old school...
But it's also RPGs... the Dragon's Dogma thing, though. I mean, like, you sort of happen across things and you're like, oh, okay, sure.
Yeah, no, exactly. And I think that there is definitely a design to it. It's not random. Like, it's clearly, once you get to a certain point, if you go here, this thing will be trigger. There. It's criteria. It's not random, right? No. It's not random, but it's not very forthcoming with the criteria that you need to be on. It's not like there's clues or anything, like you say. So it's not like someone's gone, oh, I heard a rumor that such and such is in this village. There's none of that, unless I've missed.
No, some
maybe
there's
is,
some of
but
that, not to my knowledge, not that one.
A lot.
No,
and so it is more like you kind of go and chat to a new person that you see, and you wonder, is this going to be a new hero? Is this going to unlock a new? I
was going to ask you too about that. Is it just me? The new heroes do stand out. Like, you go into town and you're like, that's one. There's one there. They're like more colourful or something.
It's the standard RPG thing of if you're a standard villager, you have the boring clothes.
You are wearing beige.
That are palette swapped depending on which village you live in. And then if you are an adventurer, you are kitted out in like,
you've got like a million spikes and colourful. And you're like,
it's like you can easily spot the heroes in. Yeah, you can, or the characters you have to interact with because they just look different. And there are enough different variety of like villagers for it not to look ridiculously samey, but you do spot them repeated over time, like you would in any.
Yes.
Yeah, so it's not like, oh, I didn't know that person was a hero. You're like, they've either got crazy clothes or crazy hair or both. Like you know every time that it's a person of interest, shall we say?
Yeah,
it's probably the best way of describing it. Yeah, definitely.
The one thing that I want to sort of assuage any concerns, because I think that there really are, by the way, 100 heroes, like the plus. There really are. They're not all. I mean, they're all
100
usable
fighters. Let's be really clear.
Yeah, that's the word I'm looking for. Fighting heroes. Although there's a lot of them. I'm
not saying.
More than half.
Get your money back. There's not.
No.
Fighters,
I think it's like 70-30, or maybe even higher in terms of how many you can directly control in battle. And the others are actually really important as well for different reasons in battle. They're support characters that, for example, again, I'm sort of dancing around spoilers, but like if you have one person as your support character, they won't appear in battle, but they will give you a better yield. If you're out in the field and you pick up some wood, they will give you more of it.
And then some support characters do appear in battle,
and some do as well.
Let's not go there.
Some add like a button at the start of because you can fight, flee, or auto combat, and some add one there as well, like a fourth option.
Do they?
Yeah, and I didn't even realise that until I did it, just because I happenstance, and I was like, oh, that's what that means. Okay, and that's what I'm talking about.
Just going back briefly to the point where it doesn't tell you a lot. I didn't realise I'd unlocked about 6 support characters until I just happened to hover over the support, and
they just appear
where you form your party.
Yeah,
and I go, oh, I can actually.
That's where they went.
I knew there was one coming because of what we were talking about, and I hadn't got to that one yet.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, oh, it doesn't matter. I've already unlocked like 6. Oh, okay. Fair enough.
In sort of less vague terms, the thing I wanted to mention is that you would be forgiven for thinking, because it's all voice acted, by the way, you would be forgiven for thinking like the characters sort of become a bit cookie cutter or become a bit repetitive. I think by the time I'd rolled credits, I won't explain how, but you can see who you've missed, and I think I'd missed 21, and there's over 100, so it's I was in the 80s.
Yeah.
I never encountered a hero who didn't seem unique and different, like in terms of their personality traits and their voiceover. And some of the voiceovers are so brilliant. Like there's every accent under the sun, I think, in this game, man.
Can I just say, right? Like you'll have experienced this, Lyle, in the preview as well. Like I love the fact because I don't know if it's a localization thing or not. I don't know how many languages this game is translated into, if it is or whatever, right? But there's a load of like English and American twangs and like regional accent things that they lean into so much, and it just makes like the character dialogue and the personalities come out so much more. It's not standard voiceover artist six like doing like, and so they all sound, even if they might have different lines, they all sound a little bit similar because they're just like middle of the road sort of Americanized accents. I think Mick mentioned in his review, like there's this guy with a crossbow from Yorkshire who sounds brilliant, like, and it's just like they're all like that, and it's just like, one, why, but two, well done, because it does such a good job, like of differentiating, because even if you do, they are all different, but there are obviously similarities. You might have a couple of healers. One's a nice healer, one's a smarmy healer or whatever, a rude, but they're still healers. But the voice acting is what separates it, and then the writing within that and the execution of that writing.
But also, to be clear, I'm not sitting here pretending you will definitely use all 100 plus heroes. Like, there are heroes when I finished the game I had never used, and that's not. I don't think that's a negative or a positive. Well, I think it's a positive.
Definitely won't be the case for me. But yeah,
really, okay. I mean, it does.
I've used everyone so far. There are, and like I said to you, there's only been 2 that have never left my party. One is just.
I was rotating heavily, and then there comes a point when you get a character, and I was like. And it's a female character. I don't want to say any more than that, but I felt like I don't think they'll leave my party. And apart from, there are occasions where the game forces that on you. Like you have to, I'm not really talking about what it is. It's a turn-based combat game, okay? But it is so rapid. Like you queue up all your moves at the start of each turn.
Yeah.
And if you don't want to, you can actually just equip a thing that or not equip, just press a button that says auto, and you can even. I think you mentioned this, Lyle. Was it on a podcast?
Yeah, it was. Yeah. You can kind of like. It's almost like the Gambit system from Final Fantasy 12, where you can just sort of like say, if your health is above this, do this.
There's loads of different tweaks. Yeah.
And again, being completely honest, I didn't engage with any of that aside from turning it off so that they didn't ever use magic. Or
that's what I did, because I used to have palpitations when I used to go, screw it, auto, and then all the magic auras came up, and I was like,
that is it. You can't be using all my MP.
This is a limited commodity here. Don't just start pissing spells at some bats because it's like easier than using your weapon.
As you progress, that MP limit becomes less of an issue. For example, you can get items that give you plus 200 or plus 100 MP or HP.
Yeah.
So you can. And here's the really interesting thing, and this is the thing about this game that I think I really appreciate, because it's doing everything well. The story is kind of what you'd expect from the genre. There's not about the story where you're like, oh, this is Shakespearean. It's just one of them RPG stories. The combat's great. It's really Moorish. It's quick. A lot of this game is quick. It's really snappy. The thing that I appreciate about it, I think more than a lot of games in the genre recently, it wasn't until playing this game and having a bit of trouble with it difficulty-wise, where I realised I have become accustomed to in RPGs nowadays, and Lyle, you play a lot of these, so you feel free to chime in and tell me if you agree or disagree with this. While the stats are present, and you can see them, and there's numbers there that go up when you level up and equip different gear, I kind of have got to the point where I didn't know I was doing this, but I kind of not asked with it. I've just been going with the flow. Like it's not been something that since I think I was a kid where I've really sat there and gone, right, so that I need that person because they've got that. And do you know what, that sort of thing? I don't know if that's just me, or the way games have been going.
Yeah, I wouldn't say I go hardcore on that sort of stuff either, to be fair. No, I'll equip something because it is stronger than something else.
And that's kind of...
Numbers go up means good, right?
Yeah,
that's kind of
the baseline.
Yeah.
But in this game, like, the numbers really matter. Really matter.
I find particularly I pay a lot of attention to a few of them a lot. Like...
the defense and the attack and the
defense
speed
and attack,
all...
and a three that magic. I just assume is going to be good for like magic wielders. But those are the three that I'm like, if I'm struggling in a fight, it'll be because I'm leveling up some heroes, which I'll come on to in a minute, which is a really important point I want to make about this game. And it'll be, and I'll go, why is this person getting absolutely annihilated? Or what? It's because of this, and this. I
had an example of that I can give you with, I won't say the character's name because it's not important. A character who I had been using quite a bit and had been in my party quite a lot, but her defense stat wasn't that great. Yeah. And I got a new item that in a dungeon, and I'm like, oh, fantastic, extra defense. And I had two people to pick between, and it was her or this other guy. And I gave it to the guy, and I was really umming and ahhing because by this point I knew the stats mattered, and I was like, oh shit, but I can't do much. I've got to pick one here. Both of these need the stat boost. He's quite hard. Yeah, we'll give it to him. Next fight, she got killed in one hit.
Yeah.
And I literally was there like, and if I had equipped her with that, she would have survived that. He probably would anyway. But I was trying to sort of... I thought, no, I've already got good stuff for her. I'm going to change her out after this anyway. And it's just...
I find actually, it does force you to do the opposite of maybe what you would do when you're mixing parties, because what you normally do with characters is you lean into their one strong stat, don't you?
Yes.
So what you would normally do is you go, right, that's a magic user. So if I get an item that's plus magic, and you might still do some of this. So you go, I'll give that to the magic user because they're... Whereas if you do what you described and go, I'll give this defense to the guy that's already got strong defense.
No, you've made an imbalance in your party. Yeah, massive imbalance.
And then an enemy casts magic on your whole party. Two of them are dying because they've got low defense and stuff. Like, you need to have a decent composition that can withstand and support everybody else. And you're right. The stats actually, I haven't looked at stats of a party makeup as much as I focus on it when they level up. Oh, how much extra defense points did you get? How many extra attack points did you get? I need to know this because I need to manage it.
I think it's also quite well balanced as well. Like there's if you're rushing through it and you're missing content, you're going to be a low, not strong enough. But on the other hand, another thing that, again, when you start playing it, and Lyle at preview level, you'll be like, how are they going to handle this when I've got 100 when I'm 30 hours in and I've just found 5 people? Because there are moments where story beats happen. It's like, so-and-so's joined the party. And yeah, okay, 5 times that comes up and you're like, oh, bloody hell, but I haven't even used the 3 I just found in the dungeon. Okay, fine. But the thing is, the way the level scaling happens is great, because so there's one character that is hidden early on in the game that is a samurai, okay? I kept meaning to use him. I was like, he seems cool, he's hidden, I'm going to use him. And every time I was right, I'm back at wherever it is, I'm going to put him in the party now. Some story beat would happen where it's like, no, you've got to have this person. But bloody hell, fine, I won't have him this time, next time. This kept happening until I got to this town quite late on in this game, and there's another character who can join your party who is related to him in some way. And the way she will join your party is if you defeat her with him. So he has to be in your party. He was level 4. I was level 50, 55, I think, at this point.
Yeah.
The average 55.
Yeah.
One hit kill every time, couldn't do anything.
Yeah.
So I took him, stuck him in the back line. No, I didn't, because he's a short character. You have to put him in the front so he's only short range. I took him with me, and I put my 5 strongest, highest levels who could protect him, and did like a dungeon I was going to do anyway. It was an optional one. By the end of that dungeon, he was the same level as everybody else. I mean, within 2 fights, he went from level 4 to 40. I don't
want to spend too much time talking about maths, but I was saying to you like, you teed up the maths, so strap in. Because I said to you, I was like, I have no idea how they're going to balance 100 characters here. Like, it can be bad enough sometimes balancing a party of 6, or like you said, a party of 8 when I can only put 4 in. Like, how is that going to work? Yeah. Like, and if they just give you all the same XP, it's a bit shit. So how are they going to manage it? And you were like, yeah, you only get XP if you're in the battle. I'm like, fucking hell. So there's like 90 heroes just resting and not leveling up. How the heck does that work? Do you just have to pick 6 and stick with them for like the whole game, right? So, but the way it does it is really clever, because I've looked at the maths of it. So there's 2 things which factor into the XP a character gets. One is how many people are in the party, which normally is 6 after the opening like hour. The other thing is what level they're at compared to the enemies that you're fighting, which is standard, but the scaling of it is huge. So like if you're on a par, you get sort of standard XP. If you're below, holy crap, you get like thousands, tens of thousands of XP just for existing in a party that is victorious against high level enemies. So then what Adam described is you go into a particular level 4 in, it's not that they get the same XP as the because in most games, that those enemies give you 300 XP. Yeah. And therefore 300 XP to a level 4 is a lot. Yeah. But actually in this game, because you were level 4 against a level 50 enemy, you might get 5,000 XP rather than the 300. So you get more, and it's a lot for your level anyway. Yeah. So within a few fights, you're like only 2 levels behind them, but not because the gap between the XP is so big, because it's scaled up as well. So you get in a situation where all your fighters can get up to the level. Like, I haven't dropped the main character Noah out of my party for that entire game, and if I want to, within a few fights, whatever characters I've got can be at the same level as him because of the scaling. And they'll just the only time it stops giving you more XP is when you're at the same level as everybody else, right? Because it scales per level. So
it encourages.
They're only ever a little bit behind, because it's like I'm 60% round to the next level. They might be only at 10%.
Yeah, and they will always be that little bit behind.
Yeah, but the scaling is so good, which means you can flip in and out and try new characters.
It encourages that, I think.
A few fights to get them viable, which it needed to do. Otherwise, it wouldn't have worked. It would have broken the game if it was standard experience. But that is if anyone's worrying, it absolutely
everyone's
is
viable. Everyone's like, you could even go to an older dungeon and make sure that you could deliberately make it so your party's really fast, and that 6th person who's level 4 never again gets a go for 3 battles because you've killed everyone before, but they will still get the XP. The only time they don't get XP is when they die, and it's not perfect. Like, this game's not perfect. There's a few elements about it that are like. So you're exploring a big dungeon, you're in it for an hour or something, and you find like a new rune. A rune is the equivalent of like a materia or a magic item you equip to your character, and they can then use that rune, whether it's like a move or magic or just even like a strength buff. And you find like 3 or 4 in a dungeon, but you cannot equip them anywhere but at a specific rune shop or party formation place. And it's pretty kind of odd because it's the only thing in the game like that. Like if you find a new shield for a character who can use shield, you can equip it. It's equipment. A new helmet, a new suit of armor, or a magic robe. All of that can just be equipped. A new ring, fine, equip it. But runes are only switchable or changeable, or even equipable if you have an empty slot. So and this is the other. This is why I don't like that system. I get it that you can't swap runes. Okay, but when you actually just unlock a new rune slot in because they each have, it'll be like level 41, you'll unlock a new rune slot for this character. Mm-hmm. You can't equip into an empty slot. Like you cannot do that in the middle of a dungeon. And there are ways to mitigate that. You can use like the rune of return or whatever it's called to go back to the dungeon start, walk out the front door, teleport to wherever you want to go. Go to a place you can do this. And some of the bigger later dungeons where you think, oh, I can't actually leave this place because of story reasons, there'll be like people outside the front door from your party who can do this thing. But not, I don't think, early on in the game. And it's a peculiar sort of limitation I don't get it. I honestly, I've played this game for about 20 hours and I don't get it. Yes, I get that there's different runes, and you can only, when you open up that rune slot, it's a specific type of rune slot, right? So this can only equip these types of runes. That's fine. Yeah, that
certain,
I don't mind.
certain characters can only equip certain types of armor. Again, fine.
Some people can have shields, others can't.
Some people can have shields. Some people can't wear certain types of hats or whatever. Fine, right?
That's
that
all standard RPG stuff.
But I don't understand why, if I find a rune, I can't equip it if it's the right kind of rune and there's an empty slot, or even to swap it for something else that is already equipped. I don't understand why I have to go to a special shop or something to go, and now I want to do it. Like I don't get why that's a thing.
It's a really peculiar limitation that it doesn't ruin the game. It's just, it is always an annoyance.
But everything else pick up a new rune that's so like I don't get why you can't do it with those.
I don't. It's probably some sort of law thing. The reason why it
matters, sorry to go in on it, but the reason why it matters is because there's an inventory cap as well. And so I think
that is another big issue with the...
in most RPGs, you've got this, side pouch that's as big as the world, that you've just got this black hole thing, you carry as much as you like. There's, and I don't mind having, equipment baggage and stuff, but again, it's a limitation that coincides with that, and I don't get why it does it. To be honest, it is the one thing I wish that you could do on the fly, because it would encourage more experimentation. Yeah. Whereas what tends to happen is, because it's like, it tends to be more of the moment when you happen to be in that town, you go, okay, this feels like the right thing to do. Whereas with all the other bits where it promotes experimentation with different characters and different armor and stuff like that, the rune just feels very... I don't get why it's so rigid.
What I would say about the rune system is I think it maybe thinks it's deeper than it is. And I think because there's like certain slots for enhancement, certain slots for magic, certain slots for skills, I think it thinks it's deeper than it is. I tend to find what I did is, as long as, say, I was making them a mage or a physical attacking person, I would make sure they had an equipped rune that like boosted the power or the magic, depending. And basically, my rule was, and it saw me very, very well through the game to the credits, make sure every single party member of your 6, every single one of them has some form of water rune, because water runes, even the very level 1 base rune, has a heal whole party for 40 MP. Meaning... So, for example,
wind's decent as well, but water's good.
Wind's fine, but the reason I say that is that basically, because you are limited, there is no way of getting more MP other than an item or resting at an inn. So if you were in a dungeon, you might be thinking, well, I'm only going to use Francesca, for example, an early character who is a mage, as my healer. But if they've all got magic and they've all got water... While it might seem like, well, I've only got 100 MP for this character, that's still 2 full heals.
Still 2 heals, and it means that
if you leave the more powerful healers until later in the dungeon, when you're facing bosses and you need 6 or 7 full heals, it just means you've got a much easier. So that was my
and also it's you're not then in that scenario where you're like, fuck, my healer's dead. Like, which is like, well, what do I do now? Because you've got 6 of them. So
But like, there's we're half an hour into talking about this game and we haven't mentioned there's town building, there's I don't know what you'd call the large-scale battles, really. They probably do have a name. There's a card game, the Bagoma we mentioned. There's some sort of racing mini-games. There's so much here. I reckon if I wanted to, I could comfortably load my save up pre-final boss and put another 44 hours in comfortably. Some of the... Like, if you were going to 100% this game, some of the achievements, they're tasty. Like, getting every treasure chest in the game is...
That's a choice.
It's a choice of an achievement as well when there isn't a fucking treasure chest tracker. Like that's an arsehole of an achievement.
You can know how many you've got by
looking
at
how
the
many
Steam tracker.
You've opened, but it's not like in Zelda.
Have I done that
says,
area?
Yeah, this bit has
12 chests in it.
But there's other ones as well. Like get all the. I think there's. Is it in Bagoma? I think there's an achievement for beating or playing everyone, and there's like 92 people or something. What?
You don't know who is interested in playing Bagoma unless you chat to everyone on the off chance. Unless they're walking. If they're walking, they don't play. That's what I found out.
What I would say is that 44 hours in, credits are rolling, and I'm like, this game was worth the wait. You know, we all know it's been a Kickstarter for like, God blimey, forever. They did Eiyuden Chronicle Rising as like the preview, not preview, but like as the it's like
an introduction to the universe.
Because there are characters
while
in
being
it.
A different sort of game. Yeah,
there are characters in it that I think are in this.
I
love it. Like it's one of those that I can respect and understand. It has certain flaws. There are elements of it that people are going to rub up against and find a little bit tough to accept. Mm-hmm. But I just couldn't stop playing it. It was just so Moorish, and I just couldn't get enough of it. And yeah, I really, really recommend it. I recommend all RPGs this year, apparently. So I mean,
yeah, you do.
But this is up there.
It's a short one for you, isn't it? Comparatively,
I won't get into this actually because it's too sort of not spoilery, but it might lead people to thinking what story stuff could happen. But I was very much prepared, thinking this was going to be an 80-hour.
I mean, just from the preview alone, where like we'd met 10 heroes total, and it was like 5 hours long. You put that together, and you think maybe a bit longer, really, especially once you get to like later game stuff where you don't expect to get it as rapidly and stuff like that.
It's just it never ceased to sort of amuse me when you then hit a story beat and then it would just go and it would just add like 6 people to your roster and you're like, God, bloody hell, how long is this game? Because like there's it's just fantastic. But let's move on to talk about another game that we've all played actually. Pipistrello and the Cursed Yoyo. Lyle, talk to us.
Yeah, so Pipistrello and the Cursed Yoyo it's essentially a like top-down Zelda game, a fully retro Zelda game. Inspired by Zelda. It's not actually Zelda. That'd be weird. If they just let some other indie developers, the people who made Dodgeball Academia, like, oh, you can make the new Zelda game, sure, why not? But it's like in the style of a top-down Zelda, but instead of having like a little sword and a little bow, you have a yo-yo. And I mean, that sounds like it might just be like swapping out one item for another, but the yo-yo kind of has a lot of different abilities it can sort of use, or like a different sort of like functions. Like if you throw your yo-yo into a diagonal corner, it bounces off that corner and then sort of stretches really far. So you can kind of zigzag your yo-yo around to solve certain puzzles or maybe attack enemies who are in the distance. Then you also have like different moves, like you can walk the dog, the classic yo-yo trick that we all remember from the 90s, where you do it along the ground, and that's sort of like a dash attack. Or you can jump and hit your yo-yo against the wall, and you'll sort of bounce backwards at a fast pace and get over gaps. And it just like, I mean, we all played like a preview build that was, it took maybe 45 minutes or something to finish.
I have a confession. Mm-hmm. There's 3 parts of the preview build. I think there's the start of the game. I can't remember the other one, and a boss fight.
Like a dungeon, I think.
I only played the first one because I liked it that much. I was like, and I actually then emailed the PR straight away. I was like, when's this coming out? And they were like, we don't have a date yet. And I'm like, yeah, I'm going to stop because that could mean December for all I know. And I really enjoyed what I played to be like, I don't want to. I played enough to know that like I'll play this when it's ready. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I get that. You did miss out on a few kind of like extra functions as well, though. That like extra like mechanics and things like that. Like there's a whole like like a badge system, almost like in like a Paper Mario game.
No, I did see that because that's right at the end of the first bit, isn't it? Where you get to the lair and there's like I think there's one.
There's one you can get right at the end of the first.
Yeah, there's one.
So,
I think it's hidden. I don't think it's obvious, but I was
it isn't. But,
and there's one in the
Mr. Pixel
base. Yeah, and I found it too. Yeah. So, I did see
that. But like when you go to these later two sort of portions of the preview, you basically had like 15 of these points and like a screen full of badges that was just like, imagine if you had found all these, now pick what you want, and there'd be one that's like, if you bounce your yo-yo off a wall, it does more damage, or like you take less damage from certain types of attacks. Or I think there was one where you could, if you were like you bounced on the water, you could like get an extra jump to get across like gaps like that. So there was a few that seemed a bit more like this will mechanically get you to different locations. Some that just seemed to be like you'll be better in combat and stuff like that. But they were really interesting. I think one of the things that just made it that really like hooked me and made me think this is going to be something that's like a special game I really, really love is like the like dungeon design, the level design was just, it was like tippity top notch in terms of like navigating like a kind of a sort of maze of things you have in your map and being like, okay, there's a key in this direction, and each room having its own little puzzle to solve or its own little like little challenge to get past. Like there was a whole moving platform bit where you had to hit switches with the yo-yo and cross different gaps and stuff, and it was just like it just felt so polished. It just felt so Zelda. Like it felt like you were playing a game of that, like with that like Nintendo undefinable quality where you're like,
the seal of quality.
Great. That? Exactly, the little seal, the little gold seal. It was like a game that had that little gold seal. But yeah, it was like, and then there was a boss fight that was amazing. The boss fight, the final of those three little portions of the game that were in this preview was like, it was something else. It was like it was one of the best boss fights I remember I've played in like a long time. It just had so many different things you had to dodge. It made it obvious how you did it, and it was like, you just had to, it really tested all your yo-yo skills. Second yo-yo game of the year, by the way. Just yo-yos are back now, apparently.
What I find interesting about a lot of games like this, and I'd sort of lump mini shoot adventures in there, is that while a lot of them are aping games from long, long ago, we're talking, when you say Zelda, if it wasn't clear, we're talking NES Zelda, not like Tears of the Kingdom. We're talking, and a lot of them, not specifically Zelda, so don't get angry at me, but a lot of games from that era rather, were a bit clunky. Like when you play them now, responsiveness a bit clunky. What I love is that these, like Pipistrello and like Minishoot, it channels all that, but it's in a really modern feel. Like Pipistrello feels like instantly playable, like responsive. And it's only when you were talking just then I was like, I'm pretty sure that's the Zelda jump. The sort of weird,
the little tiny,
because of the
like
viewpoint. Yeah, like the kind of spit. I might be misremembering, but like it feels. The thing I like about it is it feels great, and simple things please simple people. But when you first fire the yo-yo off, because you've spotted a triangle, and you're like, I wonder, and then it just goes like on this massive trail on its own, and they've designed the dungeons in a way that the enemies are deliberately placed, initially at least, so that when you hit that triangle, it goes round in a path and takes out all the enemies. And I think that's it's just. Yeah, I really, really, really like what this game's doing, and to the point where I was like, I have to stop because I got a lot of other stuff to play, and this could be, for, like you say, Christmas for all we bloody know. I didn't really like Dodgeball Academia though. Is one of those games I've been meaning to play for the longest time. Yeah, and it's just made me want to play that even more because that looked like my jam already. If that makes sense, but I can't be taking on RPGs from prior years now as well. Like that would be.
I mean, it wasn't a long RPG to be fair. It was like 8 or 10 hours. Just so you know,
baby RPG for you.
Yeah, you play them all now. So that was a great game though. When I realized it was the same developers and I was enjoying it this much, I was like, this is going to be a game that could be, a contender for this year when it releases.
You mentioned something in your preview as well, by the way, that I didn't even spot. Because I only played that sort of 20-minute part of it. When you pause, is it when you pause or when you stop? And
Yeah, either when you pause or when you just leave it alone for a moment.
Yeah.
But the game zooms out and you're playing on like a mock Game Boy Advance because they're very sort of like proud that this is sort of this is supposed to be kind of like a Game Boy Advance era game. Essentially, it's in that sort of style, and it really does feel like that. There's something about that. There's a specifically that exact handheld where I feel like you can pinpoint a game that would be on that, like something about that style, and I guess the size of the screen and maybe the limitations that would bring. But yeah, it really has a feeling of that. It's maybe modern convenience is realistic,
sure,
but it had that feel, and it's cool that they had this little like cute. I'd say Easter egg, but it might be a bit too obvious for that. But
I hadn't spotted it, but then to be fair, we preview, demo builds, blah blah blah.
Yeah.
Anything to add, Chris?
I don't want to be negative for the sake of being.
Sounds
negative.
like you're gonna though. So
here he comes. I'm not gonna labour it. But in the interest of balance, I just wasn't as enamored as you two were. I've only played the first section, and me and Adam spoke about it. And obviously, you said you stopped straight afterwards.
Yeah, it was pretty instant for me. Like everything about
it wasn't instant for me. I get what you're saying, Lyle. I just found it like good, not blown up, but I'm not blown away. But
to be fair to Lyle, we're talking a 50-minute preview build. It could shit the bed.
Yeah, no, 100%. And I've not seen some of the other stuff. I think I owe it to the game to play the other two.
You owe it to Lyle.
Bits. I don't owe it to Lyle anything.
You don't owe me shit.
But I'd seen obviously in the trailer that whole bounce off the triangle stuff, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I love geometry, I love maths, it's great. But so I'd seen that, so I was like, when it was in that, because it's that does that quite early on, right?
Yeah. Once it's got a bit of story, and then you get control.
They are well designed rooms. You can see the triangles to go. Oh, if you do that, you'll hit both the enemies. I get it, right? And if you do that, you'll get the key, and you do that. So I'm not shitting on it for the sake of it, but I was just like, I had a genuine conversation with Adam. I was like, tell me what you felt after this. Am I just a soulless husk now that can't enjoy games? Because I'm not.
I think it's an analysis thing. Is that I see that what you've just described, and my thought is the way that games are nowadays. If that's what you're seeing in the first 20 minutes, where are we going to go with this? I do think
it was quite obvious that it was the very start of the game.
That's definitely the intro.
Oh yeah, 100%. Yeah,
well, if it isn't, then fair play. They bait the switch, but that is the intro. I would say that is the first 20 minutes of the game. Yeah. Definitely, almost. I mean, I can't say for sure because I don't know, but if that's what you're doing immediately, I also liked the fact that it's one of I think it's maybe got Metroidvania elements. I don't know, but I think it has.
I think it does, yeah.
And I like when those games kind of. I don't want 20 powers in the first 10 minutes, but I do like when they're kind of quite quick to introduce stuff, and this does that as well. I think so. I'm sort of conflating together all of what I feel about that compressed amount of game, and feeling like if that's what this is in the first 20 minutes, I feel like we can only go bigger and bigger and wider. And once you get out, because was it you, Chris, that said that when you get into the open worldy bit, it reminded you of Turtles?
Yeah, it did.
So for me, it was more like the original Grand Theft Autos. I was like, this is like GTA's style map. So it's like everyone's got their own. But I totally get what you mean. Like the Turtles. What was it called, that game? The NES one.
I want to be really clear on this.
You hate it,
I can sometimes sound like a misery. I didn't dislike it at all. I didn't dislike it.
You're just not as easily pleased as us.
I think. I do wonder if it was how sometimes when people, because you guys had both said it was amazing, and I do wonder if it's one of those things. If I'd had nothing, I'd have gone in and I might be like, that was pretty decent. I'm like, whereas I've gone in going, this is going to be like the thing that I love the most this year, and I'm like, it's just good. I get the whole thing, I do, and I need to play the other bits because I do want to know how a boss fight works. I do want to know how I feel about maybe a whole dungeon rather than just the bit in the first section, which there's a bit of story and stuff going on.
Didn't you just I loved how you got the keys and shit, and I just thought I love when a game just makes you think just a bit more than it's not automatic. It just makes you fizzles your grey matter just a little bit to make you go, oh yeah, you're not in it.
I guess this is the thing, you're. Okay. I can't say this. That sounds like a cunt.
You're literally going to say
I didn't have to
I'm
think
simple,
for any of that. So I think for me, I hope what you're saying about where it goes is true, and that's why I think I need to play the other two preview bits, because then I might have a better sense of the trajectory of where it might
challenge your mind a little bit more than simple Adam over here needed.
No, but with the greatest respect. like you said it, so I'll just agree with you because there's no other way of saying it.
To
like,
be fair,
I
did say
flummoxed by anything
normally
in
people will go,
it was
no,
obvious. Like there's a load of triangles leading to a key. Right, I know what I need to do. Like, I'm not trying to make out that I'm a genius, but it's not puzzling, is it? Like that first section, it's not.
I'm not saying I struggled with it. I'm not saying I was there going. I'm just saying. It's
Wish there was a guide out there. Right
yeah,
now.
Exactly. Yeah, there needs to be a guide for that first section.
No, it was more that like it's not like utterly simplistic for a start of the game.
It's
it
not
was like
passive. To be
that's
clear,
what I'm getting at.
And there's clearly. You can either go. There's definitely that thing where you can go into a room.
I wasn't jumping in the water over and over again and dying and like, how do I get this key?
Exactly. Yeah,
there's no path between the key and me. I just splash. Oh.
Right. Okay. Yeah. So you could definitely go into rooms and battle enemies normally, or use the room to your advantage. There's definitely like they have thought, like you say, about placement and room design, but it's not like. There are some rooms where it's like the only way you can possibly reach them is by doing this thing, or it's like you can use it if you want, which I think is kind of presumably where it will go. Is like you could kind of carve your way around things, especially with the badge system, right? So yeah, I think I need to play the other two sections. I just remember feeling after the first bit going, all right, like that was all right, like it's like, but it wasn't like so. Yeah,
in all fairness, I played all three in a row as well, so I can't remember in between like the first section and the next two if I was like blown away or not because I was basically done by the time.
Not to blame Adam, but I will. Right?
Yeah.
I this is the truth. He doesn't know this, but so he'll probably erupt and say, "How can you possibly blame me?" So let's do it while he's drinking. But like, I had just finished the first section. And was literally
just to be clear to those listening on audio form, Chris, I was taking a drink from a glass while he's drinking. So it almost sounds like he's absolutely lashed.
He's going through a phase where he's just getting half cut.
If you're not watching on video, I was physically lifting a glass of Vimto to my mouth. Other brands are available.
So, like, I just finished the first section. And I was like, right, let's now do that dungeon in the second section now, and let's see how it goes. And literally, as I was finishing that first section and about to click on the second one, Adam messaged me and he's like, "Oh, I can see you're 21 minutes into the play of the game. You must have finished the first section. What do you think?" And I'm like, and then I was like, because he was like, "I only played the first section and I was so enamored. I
knew you were going to play it down." And I was like, "Gone quiet for 20 minutes."
What's that?
I knew you were going to play it there and then, almost out of spite to Lyle, just so you could say it was crap, and then you played. Exactly, you went absolutely quiet for 21 minutes. I was like, he must have played that bit by now.
Yeah, so
it was an educated guess. I know maths too. Like, you see.
So and then because he said he loved it after the first section, I was like, is there something wrong with me? I wanted to play the second section, but now I'm like, am I just this soulless husk of a man that doesn't love video games anymore?
I do think you were in the wrong headspace at the time, and that does happen. Like it happened to me with a game recently where I was like, people have been raving about this. I'm really not seeing it. And then the next day I played it, I was like, oh, this is fantastic. But I was in just a shitty mood and it's like, sometimes you should know yourself better. Do you know what I mean? I should have known when I did it. I'm like, this isn't the time to be starting a game. This is the time to be playing bloody FIFA or something you get on with and you're not going to be, it doesn't require anything of you. You're in a bad mood. And instead I was like, no, I bloody well am going to start this game. And then I was like, it's fine. And the next day I was like, oh, well, I should give it more than a time I gave it, and I was like, "Oh, this is a great game." So there is also that. So I think you should go it to Lyle, as I say.
I definitely do. Well, I mean, for my own curiosity, I want to see that like boss fight, right? If you're telling me it's like one of the best boss fights in recent memory, I'm like, I need to see that. Then that's a thing I need to see because one, I'm curious about, how it deviates from because there are big enemies in that first bit, and there are small enemies. So obviously there's big enemies. I'm like, well, that's technically like how they deal with boss, expansion. And like, so it's clearly better than that. So what is that level up, and what does it mean, and stuff like that, Whereas something like mini shoot, for example, you go, I'm kind of aware how bosses are going to work here. It's going to be
there'll be more bullets.
Yeah, more bullets and a longer health bar. What's the
purple.
deal with this sort of game? I actually couldn't tell you what the deal is with boss fights in this game, so I'd be really interested to see where it goes. So, yeah, I think it's just one of those ones where it's not been as instantaneous in terms of love. But I don't hate it. I just don't. I'm not like, oh my god, like it. Whereas mini shoot, I was like, oh my god. And as soon as I started playing that, I was like, oh my god. So I need to just.
So I had similar feelings with both of them because they're both essentially. This is a demo. I think this what we've played is like I think it was like the PAX demo. I can't remember. But I had the same feeling for both of those, Mini Shoot and this. Like when I played the demo of Mini Shoot at Christmas or January, whenever it was, and then I played the demo. They both, Anyway, look, let's talk about a game that you can play now. Let's talk about a game that is out.
And I haven't, and I'm really keen to learn about it.
Okay.
Yeah, same.
Tales of Kenzera ZAU is a Metroidvania, and it's more story focused than a lot of Metroidvanias, if that makes sense. Like there's
a purpose to the Vania-ing.
The subject matter is fairly heavy, like and it does sort of touch it because I don't know if any of you guys have this, but there's like my dad's no longer with us. Yeah, keep it light and all that, but he's not been with us for a long time. But one thing we did connect over, other than like football and sport, was that he used to play PGA Tour golf with me. We used to play that together. He didn't really get games. He didn't really understand why I was so into them, but he did play that and like Pong and Pod. There was a game on Spectrum called Pod that he played. He tried. He didn't get it, but he tried to bridge the gap in his way. And from what I understand, that's kind of what's inspired this from the creator of this game. Loss of his father and like the thing that was connecting them and blah 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 and all that. I don't want to get like too heavy on a podcast about it. So it is, the story of the game is also connected in that way. Like that is what the story is, kind of thing. Like it's about loss. But it's also a Metroidvania, and it's what I talked about when I mentioned about with Pipistrello, how yes, some of these older games feel clunky, but now they feel this ultra modern, like whip sharp controls. Like ZAU has that. Like you also start with a double jump. Do you know what I mean? Like it starts you with a double jump. And what it seems to do, I haven't finished it, but what it does instead is, so you have two masks, sun and it's got to be moon, sun and moon. Definitely the sun.
It's got to be moon.
Yeah, it's got to be. And sun is like fire and melee. And you press a bumper button and you switch to the moon, and it's like a shooter. Like you can aim and you can hold the trigger down to stand still and aim. And what it does is it will affect your powers. So like one of the first Metroidvania style powers you get is that your blue moon allows you to freeze water. You can fire a shot that freezes water.
But never mind.
No, I know. I thought the song was in my head too, but I'm not. I'm just not. So like early on, you'll jump. It teaches you jump and dash through waterfalls, so you can get to the other side of them, and that's part of the general platforming around. You get through a whole section where there's lots of water, and there's like the water currents are pushing you along. There's spikes and shit. You have to jump, and oh god, it's a bit Prince of Persia: The Lost Crown, quite frenetic with spikes and that. By the time you finish that area, you got a power where you can freeze the water, and you come back and you're just like, oh yeah, you think you're going to sweep me along with the current? You're just a floor. And now the waterfall is a wall. You can wall jump. So it's like develops in that way, and it's such a playable game. That sounds really weird, but it's such a
quote,
playable. It's such a
this is a game you can play.
Like I sat down to play it on Steam Deck, and I don't know how long I was playing, but I was like, oh shit, I gotta go out. I was supposed to be doing a thing, and I stopped, saved it, and I was like 23% through, and you're like, wow, okay, it's dark. You know what I mean? It was one of those where I just was in. But it is quite story heavy at the same time. Like there is a lot of sections where you'll come to a new region or biome, I suppose, and there's a lot of text. Now I won't go into too much of the backstory as to what's going on, but there is a companion who is with you, shall we say, in spirit. Excuse me. It's not the person you would think from what I've said earlier. It's a person in spirit, and they will talk to you. And there's this. Your ZAU is kind of quite not rebellious, but kind of a bit, not snarky, even just a bit. Do you know the sort of know-it-allism of youth? Do you know what I mean? Like you kind of...
Oh, if it's like me.
No. Yeah, but like the spirit you're with is like a... The spirit you're with is like a wise elder, and he's quite early on is spotting that, like, you need to chill out, mate. You're being a bit of a dick. He's not saying that. Obviously, that would be really, really strange tone. But he is very much trying to be like... So there's really early on, you come across this young girl, and you're single-minded, like, I need to do this thing because this is my life's goal. I want to do this. And he's like, start shouting at this girl, oh, don't do this. And she runs off screaming. And he was like, the spirit is like, you just scared her. You need to go and apologise. Like, she's running off scared. And he's like, oh, we don't have time. I've got to do this thing. So there's that kind of dichotomy where it's a coming of age. It's maturing. Do you know what I mean? Like, and already... I can see the mellowing of ZAU and the lessons being taught to one another. Also got banging boss fights, really like big sort of events. Not Final Fantasy 16 style big, but for a Metroidvania, they are big and a lot of phases and changes, and like coupling the melee and the ranged combat by the touch of a button, and then you've got specials and skill trees and everything you could want. It's a really cool game. It looks beautiful, sounds great. It's another one that's great on Steam Deck. I haven't played it on console, but I imagine it looks amazing because it looks pretty good on Steam Deck.
Yeah.
Mentioned it the other week. It just feels like the year of this kind of game, and like this is probably I don't want to say highest budget, but certainly highest profile Metroidvania, I would say, since Prince of Persia, The Lost Crown. I loved Lost Crown.
Mm-hmm.
It really felt like the Metroidvania games we knew but modernized. This is a bit different because of the ranged nature of the combat that you switch between the two. But it's got again, it's got skills, and it's it seems to be a very much thing that a lot of games are doing where they're not called badges, but you can equip modifiers. Like one of them is that you do more damage in the air, so you might want to switch to melee, uppercut them with your heavy attack, jump up in the air, do a load of light attacks. You can kick people into traps and stuff. It's just a really very well made game. Like I say, it is one of those. It's not mini shoot where there's like kind of no story going on other than what you're discovering as you play. Like this is dialogue heavy. There's a lot, not like a visual novel or anything. It's not, it's not too far the other way, but it is more story driven and more story heavy than you would expect, I think, from a Metroidvania. Which is not to say it's bad. I just want to put that out there because there's a lot of choice, and some people are like, no, I don't want any of that in a Metro. I mean, why? It's nice. It's actually quite nice for a change to have a little bit more character. A lot of times when you play a Metroidvania, you're kind of just going along for the ride and you're there for the gameplay. Yeah. Biomorph, mini shoot, a lot of these games, they're all good, but you're kind of there for the gameplay and the story is just happening, and you're really like, it's not like it's bad, it doesn't make the game worse, it's just kind of not what you're there for.
Yeah.
And ZAU, it feels like the story is a big part of this game, and I think it's been marketed that way as well. I think it's been clearly, this is a labour of love, this is a story that someone wants to tell through gaming. So yeah, that's a really good game as well. So
I'm all up for this. I mean, that I've been keeping my eye on it. So
I don't think it's very long, by the way.
Sounds great.
From what I can gather, from what I've played, after my second or third session, when I went back to the menu and it gives you the percentage, I was a bit like, oh, blimey, because I haven't really been like, I haven't got to the point yet where I'm pixel hunting and trying to find every last bit of Metroidvania I can eke out of this. I was like, okay, but again, not a complaint, not a negative at all.
No, 100%.
Absolutely
it sounds
fine.
Great. It's interesting. I don't want to be a dick about things, but like it's interesting, like to see a Metroidvania that's actually Metroid instead of just Vania. When you're talking about shooting, I'm like, say Metroid then. Like, whereas I think nowadays we just assume Metroidvanias are just melee, like because a lot of them are, right? It's literally a lot of them are.
Most of them are, I would say. Most of them are now.
Yeah, so it's actually like quite refreshing to go. So we're actually having some Metroid as well as some Vania. That sounds great to me. I'm all in for that.
But this is both.
Exactly. Yeah. A Metroidvania, some might say.
Yeah. No, I suppose, but there are, how I mean, all these games now do it, where there's like a room that will shut you off, and there's like enemies spawn, and you have to. Cookie Cutter did it. I think Prince of Persia did it. Biomorph,
you have little showdown type.
In this, they will like be very clearly like, this enemy you have to kill with the melee because he's this color, and that enemy, and it becomes quite. So, oh god, there was a Ubisoft published game many years ago,
Outland or whatever it was. Yeah,
fucking brilliant. Oh yeah, that's the one that was like, it was Ikaruga but a platform game, and so this has elements of that, which is cool as well, because it doesn't half make some of them hard, because you early on in the game I was like, oh, I really like the shooting aspect, so I'm just, because it's quicker. And I can dodge and move out the way.
And it forces you in the other way.
And all of a sudden, I'm like, no, I have to actually get half decent with this, because I'm taking so much damage, because there's an enemy up there that's this colour, and I'm used to this. And you know what I mean? So it's cleverly done as well. I'm glad that you brought that up, because I wouldn't have mentioned that. But yeah, that is 3 games this week. We're not going to do listener correspondence this week, because we're pre-recording quite early on. And if you want to get this podcast early in the future, go to patreon.com/GodIsAGeek, and you can join up there and find out more. And we will soon be hopefully bringing you an exclusive regular podcast as well that is just for people on Patreon. Chris, Lyle, thank you for being here.
Thank you.
It feels really weird not doing the jingle, doesn't it?
Yeah. Well.
What a high energy way to end.
Yeah.
Yeah, I suppose.
Cool. Whatevs, And on that note, thank you very much for listening. We're on Spotify. We're on basically, if you think of a service, we're probably on there for the podcast. But we can also be seen doing the podcast on youtube.com/GodIsAGeek. Thumbs up for that one. Like and subscribe, bell button, blah 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 blah. And if you're not on YouTube now, that's just a waste of 3 seconds, really, isn't it? And now I'm wasting more seconds by saying how much I wasted seconds, and then we just get into a cyclical mirrored.
Where the next 25 minutes are just you talking about
just apologising to the audience. Thank you very much for listening, and we will speak to you next week or whenever you choose to listen. Bye bye for now.